Hey everyone, it's Scott Monkern again. Let's take a look at the new game I played just this week, Explorers the North Sea. Hey everyone, it's Scott Monkern again with another review, second one for today. Big game week this week. I actually played a whole bunch of games. So last night we played Explorers the North Sea. So Explorers of the North Sea just came out of Kickstarter. It's part of a trio that came out. The first game was Shipwrights of the North Sea, then Raiders of the North Sea, and now we've got Explorers of the North Sea. It is a tile-laying pick-up and deliver game at its heart. Basically, you're playing an explorer, a Viking explorer. You have your own ship, and your objective is to score points in the variety of get fame. There's a variety of ways to do that. One way to do it is to go out and get livestock, different types, and it's a set collection thing. So you collect sets of livestock and you bring them home. There are ships out at sea. You can go out and you can attack them and get points. There are settlements you can go out and get. As you build the map, you can also build outposts and score points there, and then also each person plays a separate captain who has his own kind of victory point conditions as well. So basically it's a combination of a tile laying, set collection, pick up and deliver game. So this game actually has a bunch of components with it. The biggest piece of the components are the tiles. The tiles are cardboard, nice heavy cardboard, and they basically, as players play the game each turn, they play one tile to increase the size of the map. They're pretty, they're well designed. The only thing I found with them is you have various types of livestock, and we found it sometimes a little bit hard to distinguish between, say, the goats and the horses, or the horses and the cows, because they were so small. And the colors were not always as distinct as I would hope. So tiles are pretty good. Could have had some minor improvements, but I'm not going to complain much about them. The neat components is every person gets a little Viking ship you can see here on the screen, and it's designed so you actually take your Vikings and your livestock and you can put them in the ship. They actually slide in. You can put 3 in. Really nice components. You also have Vikings, which are kind of cool, and pigs and horses and cows that you pick up and deliver. You have settlement tokens, outpost tokens, which is you put outposts. The only thing which I found kind of surprising is you had all these really cool components, but when it came to the enemy ships at sea, you had cardboard tokens. And when it came to settlements you raided, you did have little wood blocks with points on them. I thought they could have done them a little bit better. They were certainly functional, but given how much quality they put into everything else, the fact that those two particular items were just standard kind of token type stuff kind of surprised me. You also have player cards. They are standard cardboard. They're not heavy. They probably could have been a little bit heavier, probably a cost-saving measure, but they were functional. So components are good. Some minor stuff they probably could have improved on. So let's talk a little bit about the art. Now, there have been a lot of Viking games that have been coming out lately, and this is just one of many of them. One of the other ones which I did a review for was In the Name of Odin, which has this really, really, really beautiful, classic Viking-style art. This is definitely a game with a much lighter feel to it. You can see this. This is the player aid card. We're talking about art that is a much lighter Viking feel to it. It's really good, fun art. It's almost comedic Viking level art. Not quite Hagar the Horrible style, if you ever watched Hagar the Horrible, but definitely a much more kind of fantasy-esque kind of Viking art than a historically accurate kind of Viking art. I mean, when you compare it with, say, the art of Blood Rage, or as I said, In the Name of Odin, the art's just very different. I like it. It took me a little while to get used to it, but when I got to playing the game and realized the game also had a much lighter flavor to it, yeah, it's really good art. It's kind of fun. It's pretty. I like it. So let's talk a little about the rulebook. The rulebook in this game is really short. It's only about 8 or 9 pages long. It's really easy to understand because ultimately, while the game has a lot of depth to it, the rules are simple. I mean, on your turn, you lay a tile and you take 4 actions. And your actions are either you can move your ship, you can unload your ship, you can load your ship, you can move Vikings, or you can attack ships, or you can build outposts. It's a relatively short list of actions. It's not terribly complicated. Now, in addition to a rule book, you have player cards, which are really honestly, they're player reference cards with player special ability cards on them. And they also tell you how scoring works at the end. We'll talk a little bit about scoring at the end and how it works. So, Rulebook, really easy to understand, good pictures. It has a components list. You have player cards, which are player reference cards. I always like it when they take a player reference card and turn it into something else. Bloody End did that with their cards as well, so I really like that. Rules are really easy to understand, really well organized. Definitely an A+ on the rulebook. So let's talk about the theme of the game. So the theme of this game is that we're all playing leaders of Viking ships going out to sea, getting livestock, raiding settlements, returning the livestock back home, building outposts, so on, and killing other Viking ships along the way. The theme is a kind of a, I wouldn't say a comedic, not Hagar the horrible type comedic, but it's definitely a lighter side in terms of Viking Age themes. It doesn't have that heavy dark theme like you'll see with other games, which, like you look at Blood Rage, it's got a pretty heavy dark theme, or Ragnarok classic games. It's a much more lighter, let's all go a Viking kind of theme. Very fun. Is it pasted on? I always ask that question. The answer is kind of, but, I can't think of, I suppose you could put like a 17th century pirate theme on top of this and probably end up with kind of the same game. I think it would be a little bit different. So the theme is fun, though. The cards are fun. The ships are fun. Moving them around is fun. The choices you have to make are fun because you've only got 4 actions on a turn and you find yourself wanting to do too many things at once. I want to move my ship and I want to move my guys. Well, you got to pick which one you're going to move. So we'll talk more about that when we get into the play. But the theme, definitely fun, kind of not comedic Viking, but I'd say a fantasy era Viking. Not deep, but very fun. So the rules for this game are really, really simple. They're not the simplest I've ever played. They're not Flux level simple, but they're very simple. Basically, you play a tile, take 4 actions, and then pull a replacement tile. And you play till the tiles are gone. And what actions can you make? You can move your ship. You can move a Viking or a set of Vikings on the table. You can unload a ship. You can load a ship. You can build an outpost. It's a relatively short list of actions. The rules are really easy to learn, but it's surprising the amount of depth that you get them, especially when you add the character cards where different characters have different sets of goals to get victory points. We played it twice last night. A friend of mine and I did. And the first time we just went completely opposite directions of the board. We built opposite directions of the board, and it was almost like we were playing 2 different games for a race for score points. We'll talk about points a little bit. The next time I thought about it, I intentionally picked a character, you get a choice of 2, where I knew that I would be much more advantageous interfering with his operations by occupying spaces, prematurely completing islands that he was working on, so on and so forth. And we did a lot more interaction on that one. So obviously there's a wide variety of different types of things you can do on this game. Now scoring is relatively simple, and on the player card it tells you how you can score. The most common way people think about scoring is it's a set collection game where you collect livestock. There's 6 different types of livestock, each one of each you type. So if you collect 1 of each, you get 21 points, and you get more with each one. If you attack a Viking ship, you can get points. You will get points, plus you may or may not lose one of your Vikings. You start with 7, you can lose them. Now, losing a Viking isn't necessarily bad because you get points for dead Vikings. You can build outposts, you can raid settlements, and then each captain has a different set of ways they can score points as well. Like I played one, the first one I played last night, I scored 1 point for, I looked at my furthest outpost and counted the number of tiles from the mainland of that outpost, and I got 1 victory point for each tile. So it was how far out could I stretch. They were the explorer. Then the second one, this was kind of the neat one, was I got 1 point for every island where I had a Viking on it, but I did not control the island. I was called the scout. So that was the one where I wanted him to take over an island, and then I would just drop a guy on there and leave it there to the end, and I would score 1 point. So scoring ran between 50 and 100 points. You score at the end. You don't have to score in the middle of the game. It's pretty obvious when one person is winning. So that's the way the scoring works. And you play till the tiles are out. Play time, we were running about 30 to 45 minutes. Our first game took about an hour. And we found ourselves, the first time was just about, could we figure out how the game is played. Second time we realized that there were an awful lot of choices to be made with those 4 actions, because could you move your ship? Did you want to move your men? Unloading and unloading, and you can only put 3 items on a ship. So if I'm trying to collect, and one of them has to be a Viking, so if I'm doing the livestock collection, I can only move 2 livestock at a time. In addition, to give you an example of kind of the choices are, as I was doing the set collection, it was very obvious, and then we were getting towards the end, and he knew I needed cows, and he happened to have the last tile with cows on it to play, and he took it and he moved it on the way opposite side of the board from where my ship was at. That's where he played it. Solely for the purpose, he didn't want the cows. He knew that if he put it over there, there was no way I was ever going to be able to move there in time to get that one stupid cow. So that's it. So the game is a lot of fun in terms of playing, and it's really easy to learn. So I've been playing a lot of Viking-themed games lately. I really like Viking themes. I've written some books on Viking stuff, so I really like Viking-themed games. This one is definitely one of my favorites that I've played so far. Now, I've liked all of them. There are only a couple, I'll say, that I'm kind of iffy about. Most of them, I really like them. It's not just because of the theme, but I think there are a lot of really good mechanics that are coming out. This one I like. The thing is, it's a good entry. I would call it a gateway game. It's not as simple as some gateway games, but it's definitely, if you're looking to introduce someone to tile laying and pick up and deliver, this is definitely what I would call a good gateway game, because unlike some other gateway pick up and deliver games where you might have 5 or 6 or 7 ships where you're manipulating, you just got 1 ship, 7 Vikings. And most of the time, you're really mostly worried about the ship. The Vikings are there just to help you move the livestock around and to occupy territory. So there's some territory. Forget about that. There is some territory occupation here. I hadn't thought about that. I mostly thought about it as a pick up and deliver, but you've got the outposts, and so you've got island occupation as well. Hadn't thought about that. So there are a lot of choices here. I talked to one guy who's a big, heavy Euro gamer. He really likes them. One of his favorite games is Brass. And he said, we played this the first time, and I thought, well, it's kind of light and fluffy. We played it a second time, and I realized that there are just an awful lot of choices here that can impact how scoring works. And I think that's true for this game. Now, this game is part of a trilogy of Shipwrights, Raiders, and then this is the 3rd one, and then it's called the Rune Saga. If you buy all 3 games, you can buy a thing at the end where you basically play all 3 games in sequence. This looks really interesting to me. I'm probably going to go back and pick up the other games in the Rune Saga over the long term, because Shipwrights and Raiders are very, very different games. Each one of these games has a completely different set of mechanics. So it's got that legacy feel to it where you're playing across a series of games towards an end game. But the difference is that your mechanics are completely changing from one to the other. So I'm going to get Shipwrights and see how I like it, and then I'm going to get Raiders and see how I like it. So it's kind of a neat turn on the concept of legacy. It's not one set of mechanics where you're just kind of bleeding through a year or 2 years like Pandemic Legacy. Obviously a very good game, no question about it. But the mechanics are fundamentally the same throughout the entire game. Here you're talking about mechanics changes each time. So what do I think about this game? Definitely if you like Viking-themed games, if you like pick up and deliver, if you like tile laying, if you like territory occupation, it's a good game. The nice thing about it is you're not forced into take that competitive situation, but if you want to engage in that type of game, you certainly can do that. Now, you can't punch each other out. There's no combat between players, but you can make decisions that interfere with other players' operations pretty effectively. So that's the game. Really like it. Definitely a pickup. Definitely one to buy. Explorers of the North Sea.